Hi Shruti, welcome to the show. Can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, hi Aakarsh. Hi, my name is Shruti, and I just finished. I just completed my master's. It's MA in applied psychology, and my specialization goes with organizational behavior, which is
Mhm.
part of HR and like it's OB and HR, and but my research interests are more inclined towards cognitive psychology. So I would say it's not just organizational psychology,
Right.
which would be my specialization. I would also say organizational cognitive psychology if we count my experience as well.
Okay. So we are going to talk about cognitive psychology today. Let us start with the definition of cognitive psychology.
Okay, so whatever I speak in this entire conversation would be my understanding towards my field,
Sure, sure.
and it might get wrong, it might get right. So feel free to inform me about it. And yeah, so when we talk about cognitive psychology, it's mostly dealing with the our cognitive or the mental processes. So there are two levels to our mental processes. One is one we are born with, and the other one is what we acquire. So what we are born with is say you would know what to do when. Now
Right.
let's take an example that you're like you there's an infant, and he knows that he would want attention, right?
Mhm.
So what do you think would be the first response?
To feed them.
No, to cry. They would be crying, right?
That's right.
Right. Children will be crying to grab the attention. So
Mm-hmm.
did you teach them this strategy? Right. So this was something that they were born with, right?
Right.
And next we talk about the level two cognitive cognition, which deals with our high order thinking, high order mental processes like mathematics, arithmetics. What is
Mm-hmm.
x plus y? Why is x plus y is equal to z? Something
Right.
which most of us hated during our
Right.
high school and
Mm-hmm.
higher studies, right? So, so I think it's my understanding with cognitive psychology is something that we deal in all these processes. So when
Mm-hmm.
we are talking about the level one, we
Right.
mostly talk about the developmental psychology. I'm not sure if that works in India, but most of the people in the West, what I know is US is
Mm-hmm.
working on developmental psychology. And if you are talking about the level two, which is cognitive psychology, level two, which is the higher order mental thinking processes, it's
Mm-hmm.
work. It's a new field to Indian orientation. We are just very much we are not well acquainted to it. Although
Mm-hmm.
if we don't talk, if we do not consider some organization or institutions like CBCS, Allahabad University of Allahabad, I think it was one of these institutions that never stopped working in cognitive
Mm-hmm.
psychology. I also know Jadavpur University that has been working in cognitive psychology for like a big period of time. And if we talk about the recent IITs and IIMs, they have recently been working on this field. In this field, that's my understanding. Although there are chances that they might
Right.
have started very young, but I think it's just recently, like a decade ago, that
So
they
the
had
field
set
is
up a
emerging, right?
right. That it's an
Right.
emerging field, and my professor at TIFR, Tata Institute
Mm-hmm.
of Fundamental Research, in
Right.
one of our conversation, he told that it must be like after 3 to 4 years, the entire field will be saturated enough.
Right.
So right. So
Nice.
I think it has a lot of scope in India if you are
Mm-hmm.
interested in um, if you're interested in how we think, how we learn, how we attend to things, how we are motivated, what our emotions talk about it. So and if you're problem and solution oriented, then I think
Mm-hmm.
it's your.
So, if we talk about higher level cognition, is it always acquired or can it also be inherited?
So I don't think I would be I have an expertise to talk about it, but I
Fair
think
enough.
what my understanding to it is that
Mm-hmm.
any processes that can be that is a mental process can be
Mm-hmm.
both acquired and
Right.
right, inherited. We cannot say it's just a role of just nurture or nature. It's
Mm-hmm.
just interplay that always helps.
Sometimes some people regard cognitive psychology as a complicated subject. So, for them, can you
Right.
ease some tension related to it?
Right. So I think yeah, I would be in a better stand to talk about it. So when I was in my 10th standard or
Mhm.
in 12th standard, I did not like maths enough. But just recently when I started my graduation, so also
Mhm.
I'm an educator. I was previously an educator.
Right.
I used to teach in GD Goenka Greenview Public
Mhm.
School. But it's just my interest that I was more inclined towards psychology, which is why I left this field.
Mhm.
But I realized that children over there, they were facing a lot of problem in learning stuff, right?
Right.
So if Akash, I ask you this one thing, so do you know how to swim?
Yes.
Okay, so let's take another Akash from the parallel world who does not know
Okay.
how to swim, right?
Okay.
So if we ask him to stand in front of the pool and he does not know how to swim, and
Mhm.
I just push him in the pool which is full of water,
Right.
would do you think he or she, oh sorry, he would be able to swim
Mhm.
by himself or learn to swim by himself?
At that moment,
Right.
I don't think so.
He'll probably like drown, right?
Right. Right.
And there are like soon after like many trial and errors as well, he would be
Mhm.
drowning only, right?
Right.
Ultimately leading to his death, right?
Right.
So this is
That's sad.
something which was happening, right? This was something which
Right.
was happening in our education system as well,
Right.
which
Right.
piqued my mind, which piqued my interest that we have been told. So
Mhm.
whenever a child enters the class, he's never asked, "Do you know how to learn?" He's just given a book and certain questions and asked him, "Learn karo." So this is something which is cognitive psychology. It's not
Mhm.
very complicated. You just need to relate your daily lives with the current scenarios and the cognitive psychology and the topics. It's not
Mhm.
very difficult. Let's take another example. So people in COVID, they have been very restless also because it has been all work from home. They did
Mhm.
not find motivation to work enough, right?
Mhm.
So I know this one student, he invented this 180-second rule. What he did, he just left each and everything around him. He left phone and everything, all the attention that he was giving to his phone and YouTube shorts and Instagram reels.
Mhm.
What he did, he counted 1 to 180. He had this, I don't know why did he keep it 180. He just counted 1 to 180, although he had an option to put a timer. But he
Right.
counted 1 to 180, and out of nowhere, he was so motivated to work again. You can
Okay.
try this as well, right?
Right.
And this child is just in 10th standard and he is already dealing with cognitive psychology and he has no interest in mathematics or
Right.
psychology per se, but he's already
Right.
practicing. Right? So
Right.
it's not very complicated. It's just that you have to relate cognitive psychology and its aspect to the daily life.
Right. And if we think of it, daily we are using cognitive psychology in some way or the other.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. It makes our problem solving abilities and decision
Mhm.
making abilities so much easier.
Right.
Like why I'm able to attend it more. Have you ever felt that why you are spending like almost 2 hours, although you planned that मैं 15 minute ही लगाऊंगा in Instagram reels में.
Right.
Why do you end up spending like 2 hours or
Right.
plus during that entire scenario? I'm pretty sure कि
Engagement.
तुम्हारे दिमाग में right engagement
Right. Right.
exactly, and there
Right.
are many
Right.
others troop effect. There are many
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
and this is all cognitive
Right.
psychology. So I
Right.
think it's probably just the stigma and the name after it that people find, oh, cognitive and this sounds so difficult.
Right. 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 Okay. So, if someone aspires to become a cognitive psychologist, what are the
Hmm.
conditions that are required?
Okay, so I would not be able to tell you about it diversify like
Mhm.
I would not be able to tell you about in diversity, but if I talk about my interest, it's mostly educational psychology and cognitive psychology, and
Right.
these two things have been linked lately. So
Right.
if you are interested, most of the educators, they aspire to be a psychologist soon after they get their DLED or JBT degree, right?
Mhm.
JBT diploma. So I think it's their path because if they want to be a cognitive psychologist, it's not just the degree that they require,
Mhm.
it's also the interest. So if I talk about myself, when I was very young, I had friends who were studying at Stanford and Columbia University back then,
Mhm.
and they told me that start exploring your interest in research. And I asked them like, what could be the process? They just asked me, pick any university that you like, the name you like from the US,
Right.
not specifically India, because people in India were very young during those time. I'm talking about 5 years from now.
Right, right.
So I just picked specifically in the field of
Mm-hmm.
psychology. We just have like two to three options in India, right?
Right,
And mostly clinical. I
right.
don't know why. What is the obsession? I know I should not say this,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, we should explore more fields.
Right.
So he asked me to not this one person, but two of these people. They asked me to explore all these websites
Mm-hmm.
and read the content and their work of the people, work of the faculty one by one.
Right.
Um, so I spent like around 9 months doing the same process,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that there were certain parts. So I was never a reader. I was never a nerd. However, now I can classify myself as a nerd. But back then, I was one of those,
Right.
explorers, and I was mostly,
Mm-hmm.
a distracted ones who's always interested in reels and not on the career. Anyway, that's a different aspect, and it also depends on the interest. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so he asked they. So when I was exploring all these topics and all these dimensions of psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and so I came across few of these fields uh, which actually grabbed my attention. I was spending around 3 to 4 days reading a particular topic which I never did. My first book when I finished was when I was 22 years old. Can you believe it? Like these days I complete one book in like 2 days, and it took me like 30 to 40 days to complete like one book of 150 pages.
Right.
So, and back then when I started to explore my interest,
Mm-hmm.
I was not reading each and every um, paper to all these people. I
Mm-hmm.
was just reading what they are dealing with.
Right.
So there was this one professor, which I'm actually currently working with as well. His name is Professor Robert Bjork. He's at UCLA. He's a distinguished professor. He has his own team, Bjork Memory and Forgetting Lab
Mm-hmm.
at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. I've been working with him for almost 4 years for now, and he also wrote me recommendations for my PhD applications. Besides, yeah,
Right.
so I started to write him. I think this is very important. People
Mm-hmm.
should start writing early if they feel that this is their topic of interest and they would want to know how research works.
Mm-hmm.
They need to start writing to professors. If not
Right.
India, I started with Indian professors, but I did not get enough responses from
And
here.
they reply like in
Yes,
foreign
they
language.
never replied. Yes, they never replied. Except this one professor, which I'm also currently working with. It's
Right.
data into fundamental research. Professor Sanjay Chandrasekharan,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the only person who replied to my messages.
Right.
He found that yeah, I could be interested, and he could make me part of his one team.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest you, if it does not work with Indian professor, do not stop there. Start emailing professor elsewhere. I think with me, um, I would not say people from UK or elsewhere would not be supportive, but personally, I found people from US very supportive, extremely supportive. They would reply to your emails. They would also suggest you if they are not, if they
Mm-hmm.
do not have any vacancies, or if they do not have any positions in their own labs,
Right.
they would suggest you people who would be having. There are also
Right.
paid opportunities. I was very lucky that I got someone who was willing to bear me for almost 4 years, and he's still in touch with me. I
Right.
have very good relations with him, and we are also launching this one website. It's a
Mm-hmm.
non-government organization where we are providing free therapy, almost like free therapy, like in like $10, we'll be providing therapy to people, and it's named after my professor Robert Ellen Bjork, which is RAB. So yeah, so
Right.
just do not stop texting people. I'll also like if you require any format to email
Mm-hmm.
these professor, I think I would be able to help you with that.
Right.
Like probably Aakarsh will help you with that. I can provide him all the
Sure,
links to
sure,
all
sure,
these,
sure. Sure,
right,
sure.
all these formats, and I can assist them whenever, like they can
Right.
write me as well if
Right.
they feel that they are stuck somewhere. I can totally help them because I have navigated through all these problems, and I have just tread all these paths, and maybe I can help. Like maybe I will be able to help you what could work, not
Right.
always work, but what can or
Right.
maybe work.
Right.
Right. So I would suggest, but never stop. If you feel that you found your interest and you would be this would be
Right.
something that that's your thing, that's your
Mm-hmm.
calling. never stop writing to professor. If it's not one, there are 2 million more, right?
True.
And
True.
if it does not work in US, do not stop emailing professor elsewhere. Like I personally found people from Germany as well, also very, very, very
Hmm.
supportive, and they also fund you.
Right.
Mostly people in US would not if you're not a
Hmm.
engineering major. But I was very lucky. I would say I am again like totally emphasizing on this fact that I was very lucky. I am very lucky that people are giving me
Hmm.
a lot of attention and to my work. But I
Hmm.
think it's also just because I was very persevere. I did not stop. There have been times that I have been also facing a lot of problems, and I thought that I would give up, but I did not. Um, so yes, this would be one process. Just email professors and you will find your way. I'm telling you.
Right.
Even I was a novice when I started and it just went back. It went like anything. It worked like a charm. Yeah.
Right. Do you need requirement of learning machines or neuroscience to be a cognitive psychologist?
Sorry, can you please repeat it again?
Do you need to know machine learning and neuroscience to become a cognitive psychologist?
Not at all. So, okay. So my minor is deep learning. I have
Mm-hmm.
learned about all these things. It's mostly just the statistical part. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding to it. I have like very little, inclination to all these things. I just learned it because few of my friends who are also computer engineers and
Mm-hmm.
who also had interest in cognitive psychology, they told me that if you do it, you'll be like getting paid in like crores. Okay.
Right.
Because that data science is all based on psychology. If you do not
Mm-hmm.
understand psychology, you can never do data sciences.
Mm-hmm.
That's my understanding, and that's what my friends told me as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I could be wrong. I I'm not sure that I would be right, but I can
Mm-hmm.
always be wrong. So just clarify your facts from the internet and some reliable websites.
Right.
But yes, this is not a mandatory thing to do
Mm-hmm.
or pursue cognitive psychology if you are talking about elsewhere and not India. But if you are
That's a big one.
interested in cognitive
Right.
psychology
Right.
in India, you need to
Mm-hmm.
learn to code. Coding is very
Mm-hmm.
important. I'm also planning to learn to code. I have command over my HTML. I'm learning JavaScript. But I would suggest you to learn JavaScript. Like JavaScript will always help you with your recruitment, and Python. Two of these languages will help you with your cognitive
Mm-hmm.
psychology career, like anything. But
Right.
this is not just one condition. I have people in my lab who
Mm-hmm.
are not interested, who are not. I would not say not interested, but that's not their aptitude. They do not have an aptitude for it, and they feel that they're mostly driven more towards the qualitative things.
Right. Right.
That's also
Yes.
required, right? If you want
Right.
to form new theories, so that's
Mm-hmm.
also required. So
Right.
it's never a mandatory thing that you would know
Mm-hmm.
machine learning or neurosciences to pursue cognitive psychology in India.
Right. In terms of growth and opportunity, do you feel that academics has more potential or joining an industry?
So I would say since my interactions with people have been mostly with
Mm-hmm.
academicians, I would not say they are making less money. But
Okay.
I recently got in touch with a person who is in industry, and he's also making a lot of money. But
Mm-hmm.
it's always about your interest and not just about money, because people mostly in the field of psychology, they're most driven towards what interests them and versus what is getting them more money. But I would also say that as an academician, yes, it will pay you your bills well, okay, and your luxury as well.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
not a bad option.
Yeah. So, like, could you explain the following terms? Experimental cognitive psychology.
Okay, so experimental psychology, cognitive psychology was previously named as experimental psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say experimental cognitive psychology, that's my understanding to it, because cognitive psychology also has aspects which is more qualitative, okay,
Mm-hmm.
which where we are interviewing people and driving data out of it, right,
Right. Right.
inducting data out of it. But
Right.
if we talk about experiments, it would be mostly lab oriented. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my understanding to it.
Right. What is computational cognitive science?
Okay, so computational would be something which most that's all again, I'm also emphasizing a lot on it because I'm very young in this field. It's just 4 years that I have been in this field. but most psychologists in India are not. So I would say that computational psychology is something which computer engineers deal with. Computer engineers
Okay.
with a minor interest in psychology deal with. So
Right.
it's not something that a regular psychology major would be interested, but you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have more interest in coding and everything. Also, computer engineering is not always about just coding. That's what I learned from one of the interactions that I had with a computer engineer. But you can always explore this field. But I think I'm not the best person to talk about it.
Right. And cognitive neuropsychology and cognitive neuroscience.
Okay, so I think my understanding to it is that they both are same field, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just mixture of. I had one interaction with one of my professors at Jamia Millia Islamia. I would not be able to tell his name, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but he told me that it's mixture of the molecular chemistry, the biology. It's mostly the sciences
Right.
and the psychology, which is interacted in such a manner. It's mostly the biological aspects, and they're also using a lot of machines, like
Mm-hmm.
MRI, fMRI, EEG,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So my last question is, what are
Mhm.
some of the most popular assessment tools for cognitive psychology?
Okay. So we do not use any tools per se, but I think
Mm-hmm.
learning to code will always have an give you a lot of opportunity to explore in the field of cognitive psychology. It
Mm-hmm.
will not make you feel any less. If we talk about your exposure or your skill set, no
Mm-hmm.
one will term you as only having theoretical information or the knowledge. But I think adding coding to it, adding the coding knowledge to it, will always provide you more exposure and more money as well.
Right.
So
That's important.
right. At the end of the day, that's also important. Not just very important, but also important.
Thank you, Shruti, for your insights. I'll pause the
Yes.
recording.
Yeah, sure.